The Galactic Coalition had fought hard for 3 long years against the Kyrax swarm. Every species in the Alliance knew the insectoids were dangerous, but nobody expected them to grow so strong, so fast. The Kyrax came from deep in the Outer Rim, where no one had explored much. They built hives on dead worlds and turned living planets into breeding grounds. Their ships looked like giant bugs with thick shells and glowing sacs full of acid. Coalition fleets met them again and again, and each battle cost more ships and more lives. The leaders of the 12 great races sat in the High Council chamber on the station called Harmony Prime. They argued about strategy and weapons and who should send more troops. In the end, they decided to make one big stand in the Veil Nebula. This place had many narrow passages between huge clouds of gas and dust. It seemed like the perfect trap for the enemy. Capital ships. There were sleek cruisers from the Elysians with perfect silver hulls, heavy battleships from the Gorath with thick armor plates, fast destroyers from the Virex, who liked to strike and run. Even the small but clever ships from the tiny core race joined in. Everyone sent their best. The admirals felt sure this time they would break the swarm for good. Scouts reported the Kyrax coming in a wide formation like a storm of locusts. Thousands of smaller attack craft swarmed around the bigger hive carriers. The coalition formed a wall of steel across the main passage. They powered up every weapon and waited. When the battle started, it began with bright flashes of light. Plasma bolts and particle beams crossed the void in long, brilliant lines. Coalition shields flared blue and green as they absorbed hits. Many Kyrax drones died in the first minutes, shredded by concentrated fire. Their bridges and said, the plan worked. Then something changed. The Kyrax hive carriers opened new sacs on their fronts. A strange green mist poured out and spread fast. This mist touched coalition shields, and the shields started to flicker. Crew members shouted in alarm as warning lights turned red. The mist ate through the energy barriers like acid on paper. Once the shields failed, the green stuff touched the hulls. Metal bubbled and ran like water. Whole sections of ships peeled away in glowing chunks. Screams filled the communication channels as crews tried to seal bulkheads. But the mist kept coming inside through every crack. It dissolved flesh and bone in seconds. Engineers worked fast to reroute power, but nothing stopped the corrosion. One by one, the big ships went dark. Explosions bloomed where reactors lost containment. Debris clouds grew thicker with each lost vessel. Flagship Eternal Concord stayed in the center, firing every gun it had. Its captain, a tall Elysian named Lyra Vox, stood on the bridge and refused to retreat. She sent orders to hold the line and protect the smaller ships. But the green mist reached even the flagship. Crew fell at their posts, with smoke rising from their bodies. Lyra watched her officers die, one after another. She keyed the emergency broadcast herself, with shaking hands. "This is Eternal Concord. The line is broken, all reserves exhausted. If any remain who can stand, the stars beg for your aid." She sent the message on every open channel, wide and far. Then the mist took her too. The bridge went silent, except for the soft hiss of leaking air. 300 warships died in those 7 terrible hours. Some broke apart slowly. Others vanished in bright flashes. The survivors fled in small groups toward friendly space. They left behind a graveyard of twisted metal and frozen bodies. The Kyrax did not chase right away. They spread out to claim the wreckage and harvest useful parts. Their chittering victory songs echoed across the nebula on open frequencies. Coalition pilots who escaped carried the horror with them. They told stories of ships melting while still fighting, of friends dissolving before their eyes, of weapons that failed when needed most. Back at Harmony Prime, the Council listened to the reports in stunned quiet. Ambassadors from every race sat with pale faces. They had lost so much in one day. The fleet that once seemed unbeatable now looked small and fragile. No one spoke for a long time. Then the core representative, a small being with many eyes, asked the question everyone feared. What do we do now? No good answer came. Some suggested surrender. Others wanted to hide on distant worlds. A few talked about secret weapons, still in stock. Development. But deep down they knew time was short. The Kyrax would come again soon. And this time, no wall of ships waited to meet them. In all the frantic talks, one name came up again and again. Humanity. The humans lived on one small blue world called Earth. They had never joined the coalition. For many years, ambassadors visited and offered friendship. Each time, the humans smiled politely and said no thank you. They traded a little technology, but kept their borders closed. Most aliens thought humans were weak, a single-planet species, still fighting over land and water. They had no great armada, no ancient knowledge, no vast colonies. Some even laughed and called them primitives. Now in this dark hour, a few council members wondered, what if the humans had more than they showed? What if they waited for a reason? The idea seemed desperate, but desperation makes people grasp at anything. Young Gorath diplomat sent a new message toward Earth. It repeated the last words from Eternal Concord. If any remain who can stand the stars, beg for your aid. The message traveled fast through relay stations. It crossed empty space and reached the Sol system. On Earth, people received it in silence. They did not reply right away. Instead, quiet orders went out from hidden command centers. Shipyards that looked like simple factories changed their work. Freighters stopped their normal routes. Sensors turned to watch the skies more closely. No one on the outside saw these small moves. The galaxy waited and mourned its losses. The Kyrax pressed forward toward the inner worlds. They stripped mining colonies and left nothing behind. Their numbers grew with each victory. Hope faded in the coalition like a dying star. Yet somewhere in the quiet dark, a different force began to wake. It moved slowly and carefully. It measured everything, and when the moment came, it would answer the call in its own way. The stars held their breath and watched. The weeks after the great defeat felt heavy across the galaxy. Coalition ships that survived the Veil Nebula limped home in small, broken groups. Many had lost engines or weapons, or most of their crew. Repair yards on border worlds worked day and night, but there were not enough parts or workers. Survivors told their stories in quiet voices on station corridors and in crowded mess halls. They spoke of the green mist that ate metal and flesh alike. They spoke of friends who melted while still trying to fight. They spoke of the last broadcast from Eternal Concord that still played in many minds. Ambassadors gathered again on Harmony Prime, but the big chamber felt empty now. Seats once filled with proud delegates now held tired beings with dull eyes. The council met every day to search for any hope. They sent messages to old allies who had stayed neutral. They asked for help from species too far away to care much. Answer came back, the same way. No, we cannot send ships. No, we will not risk our people. Some races even closed their borders tighter and turned off their relay stations. Fear spread faster than the Kyrax ships. The swarm grew bolder with each passing day. Small scout groups attacked mining colonies on the edge of coalition space. They stripped the rock clean and left only empty shells behind. Larger hive carriers moved closer to important trade routes. Their chittering songs filled open channels like ugly music that never stopped. Many civilians packed what they could and fled deeper into safe zones. Ships full of families crossed long distances to worlds that still felt far from danger. On some planets, people built shelters underground and prayed the enemy would pass them by. In the council chamber, A few voices still talked about fighting back. They pointed to secret projects hidden on distant moons. They spoke of new shield designs and better weapons still in testing. But everyone knew those things needed time, and the Kyrax gave no time. Then one quiet morning, a single message arrived from far away. It came through an old relay that few used anymore. The words appeared on every main screen at the same moment. We watched. We measured. We are coming. No name signed the message. No picture of ships or captains came with it. Just those 8 simple words. At first many laughed with bitter voices. A human message, they said. What can humans do? They have one world and old ships, and no real experience in big wars. Others felt angry. Why now? Why not before the massacre? A few felt a small spark of something like hope. But most just shook their heads and went back to their fear. The message had come from the direction of Sol, yet no fleet showed on long-range sensors. No jump signatures appeared in nearby systems. Passed, and nothing more came. Then strange things started to happen out in the dark. Kyrax scout swarms sent reports back to their hives. Then the reports stopped. One after another, the small bug ships vanished. No explosions, no debris, just silence. Hive minds felt confusion, then worry. They sent bigger groups to look for the lost scouts. Those groups vanished too. No wreckage floated in the void. No energy traces lingered. It was as if the ships had never existed. Coalition listening posts picked up the change. They heard the Kyrax signals grow sharp with alarm. Something hunted their scouts and left no sign. Admirals on damaged flagships stared at their screens. They wondered what could make an enemy disappear so completely. Rumors started among the crews. Some said it was a new coalition weapon finally ready. Others whispered about ancient machines waking up. A few brave pilots flew close to the front to see for themselves. What they found chilled them. Huge dark shapes moved between the stars. The shapes had hard angles and flat surfaces that drank in light. Radar bounced off them like hitting empty space. Visual sensors showed only shadows against the black. One pilot got close enough to see a single glimpse, a long black form, longer than any coalition battleship. It had strange lines along its sides, like spines or ribs. No lights showed, no engines flared. It drifted silent and patient. Then it turned and vanished into a jump so fast the sensors could not track it. The pilot returned shaking and told his story. Others who heard it felt their skin grow cold. More sightings came in, slow at first, then faster. Always the same dark shapes, always silent, always gone before anyone could get a clear scan. Coalition scientists worked hard to understand the new. They studied old files about humans. They found records of Earth's past wars, wars fought with fire and steel and terrible weapons, wars where whole cities burned and millions died. They read about machines that could end worlds. They read about people who built those machines, then chose not to use them fully. The more they learned, the less they laughed at the message. We watched, we measured, we are coming. The words felt heavier now. On Earth itself, life went on in careful quiet. Factories that once built cars and tools changed their work. Huge hangars closed their doors to outside eyes. Cargo ships that traveled known routes stopped sending position reports. Small scout craft slipped out of the system one by one. They carried no flags and no names. Deep space arrays listened for every sound from the war zone. They measured the Kyrax movements and numbers. They watched the coalition fall back, step by step. Command centers under mountains stayed lit all night. Men and women in plain uniforms studied maps and data. They spoke in low voices about timing and targets. They planned paths through empty space. They tested systems that had waited many years. No one celebrated. No one boasted. They simply prepared. Outside, the galaxy waited. The Kyrax pushed deeper into Coalition lands. They took more worlds and grew stronger. The Coalition shrank smaller each week. Hope grew thin, like smoke in wind. Yet in the silence between stars, something gathered force. It moved without noise. It waited without hurry. It came closer every day. And when it finally showed itself, the stars would remember the moment forever. The first true sign came without warning or fanfare. Kyrax scout packs roamed far ahead of the main swarm. They searched for weak spots in Coalition defenses. They sniffed out supply lines and refugee paths. One pack of 40 small attack craft moved through a quiet nebula arm. Their sensors swept wide, looking for metal or heat. Suddenly, all 40 signals dropped from the hive mind at once. No pain cries, no battle echoes, just empty silence. The hive carriers farther back felt the loss like a cut nerve. They sent a larger group of 200 to investigate. Those 200 vanished in the same clean way. No debris cloud, no radiation spike, no last messages. The Kyrax queens chittered in confusion and growing fear. They ordered full sensor sweeps across wider zones. Every scout that pushed too far into certain empty sectors disappeared. It happened again and again, like a shadow swallowing light. Coalition listening posts caught fragments of the enemy panic. Operators smiled for the first time in months. Something out there ate Kyrax ships and left nothing behind. No one knew what it was, but many dared to hope. Then the sightings began. A damaged Gorath frigate limped along a trade lane. Its crew watched their rear sensors for pursuers. Instead, they saw a shape appear on the edge of their scan. The shape was long and black and perfectly still. It matched speed with the frigate without effort. No engines glowed, no heat leaked. The Gorath captain ordered full scan, but radar returned nothing useful. Visual feed showed only a deeper black against the stars. The thing stayed close for 3 full minutes. Then it simply vanished as if it had never been there. The crew breathed again, but their hands shook. Similar reports came from other survivors. Always the same dark form. Silent and patient. Always gone before any weapon could lock on. One brave Virex pilot, in a fast scout ship, decided to chase one. He pushed his engines to the red line and closed the gap. For a brief second, his cockpit cameras caught a clear view. The object had sharp angles, like a blade made of night. Long spines ran along its sides in perfect rows. No ports, no lights, no visible guns. The pilot felt cold fear crawl up his spine. He fired a warning shot across its bow. The black ship did not react. Instead, it jumped away in a flicker so quick, the stars seemed to bend. The Virex pilot returned to base pale and quiet. He filed his report with one line that spread fast. They are not like us. They are something else. Then the first real contact happened. A Kyrax hive cluster hung in deep space. It prepared to launch a new wave of drones. Hundreds of brood chambers pulsed with life. Suddenly, single human ship appeared inside their formation. It jumped so close that its arrival tore small rifts in local space. The ship looked small next to the hive carriers. Its hull stayed matte black and absorbed every sensor ping. Kyrax drones swarmed toward it in a green cloud. They spat acid and launched biomissiles. The human ship did nothing at first. Then its side spines lit with a faint blue glow. A wave rolled out from the ship like invisible fire. The wave touched the nearest drones. Their shells cracked open in an instant. Chitin turned gray and brittle, then crumbled to dust. Wings and legs aged and fell apart mid-flight. Whole organisms collapsed into fine powder that drifted away. The wave kept spreading. It reached the bigger carriers. Thick armor plates flaked away like dry skin. Internal organs withered and turned to ash inside living bodies. Queens screamed through their link then, fell silent forever. In less than 90 seconds, the entire cluster died. Thousands of Kyrax lifeforms reduced to floating gray motes. The human ship stayed motionless in the center of the ruin. It made no victory signal, no boastful transmission. It simply turned and jumped away. Coalition spies who caught the battle on long-range scopes stared in shock. They replayed the footage again and again. What they saw was not plasma or lasers or railguns. It was something older and colder. It was time turned into a weapon. It was decay forced to happen all at once. Word spread through the coalition like wildfire. Humans had arrived. They did not come in great fleets with flags and speeches. They came alone and quiet and deadly. More encounters followed the same pattern. A lone human ship would appear inside a swarm group. Its spines would glow. The enemy would age and crumble. Needed no dodging, no long exchanges of fire. Just one pass, and the fight ended. Kyrax commanders tried new tactics. They sent waves of suicide drones to ram the black ships. The drones died before they reached hull distance. They tried to surround and overwhelm with numbers. The human ships jumped out and reappeared behind the swarm. They repeated the entropy wave until nothing moved. One hive carrier tried to flee at full burn. The pursuing human ship matched speed without strain. It fired once, and the carrier aged 1,000 years in heartbeats. Its engine seized, its hull split, its crew turned to dust inside suits. Coalition admirals watched these fights from safe distance. They felt awe mixed with terror. Humans had hidden this power for so long. They had let 300 coalition ships die without lifting a finger. Now they acted, and the galaxy changed with each silent strike. Among alien crews, they called the black ships Reapers. They called the weapon the Long Death. They whispered that humans had mastered secrets no other race dared touch. Some said humans had found a way to break the laws of physics. Others said they simply remembered older and darker arts. Whatever the truth, one fact stood clear. The Kyrax, who had seemed unstoppable, now ran from shadows. Their songs of victory turned to cries of warning. The swarm slowed its advance. Hives pulled back to tighter formations. Queens ordered caution where once they ordered attack. And in the quiet between battles, the black ships waited. They did not chase deep into enemy space. They did not destroy every target in sight. They struck where it hurt most and then vanished again. Each strike left a message written in dust and silence. Humanity had entered the battlefield, and the stars would never forget what came. Next, P. Humanity did not announce its full arrival with speeches or parades. They moved like surgeons with sharp tools. No grand formations crossed the sky. No fleets lined up in shining rows. Instead, small groups appeared where the enemy felt safest. First came Phase Alpha. Dozens of sleek corvettes slipped into Kyrax brood chambers. These ships looked thin and fast like needles. They jumped straight into protected zones where queens guarded new eggs. The corvettes carried no big guns on the outside. Inside, they held shaped nuclear charges tuned to bug biology. When the charges went off, the blasts focused in tight cones. Heat and radiation hit only living tissue. Queens died in flashes before their minds could call for help. Egg sacs burst and cooked from within. Nursery chambers turned to sterile ash in seconds. Worker drones near the queens fell over dead with no wounds. The corvettes stayed only long enough to confirm kills. Then they jumped out clean. Hives lost whole generations in one quiet hour. Queens who survived screamed warnings through the link. But the attackers never stayed to fight fair battles. Next came Phase Beta. Big human battleships appeared at T-points. These ships earned the name Titan class because each one looked like a small moon carved into a weapon. They arrived at Lagrange points where gravity balanced just right. From those stable spots, they could hit without moving much. Their main guns were long, kinetic lances. Thick rods of dense metal, accelerated to 4/10 light speed. When a lance fired, it punched straight through anything in its path. One shot cracked open a hive-world shield like breaking glass. The rod kept going deep into the crust. It drilled through rock and metal until it hit the core. Then the planet shook as pressure waves ripped upward. Hive cities collapsed into sinkholes. Billions of Kyrax died under falling stone. Another lance hit a gas giant mining station. The floating platform shattered into spinning pieces. Debris rained down on moons below. Titan ships did not waste shots. Each lance found a vital target. No wild firing, no missed chances. They struck once or twice, then shifted to the next system. Coalition observers watched from far away. They saw worlds crack and hives burn with clean precision. No poison clouds, no endless firestorms, just surgical cuts that ended threats forever. Some admirals felt sick at the efficiency. Others felt grateful tears in their eyes. Then came the strangest phase, Gamma. This one used no ships at all. For many years, humans had quietly placed small stealth satellites across the galaxy. These devices looked like simple rocks or ice chunks. They drifted in wide orbits around important systems. No one noticed them, because they sent no signals and reflected no light. When the order came, the Silentium array woke up. Satellites turned on hidden systems. They created strange effects in small zones. One group bent gravity into tight wells. Kyrax fleets flew in and could not escape. Ships crushed together like toys in a fist. Another set slowed time in pockets. Crew inside aged slowly, while outside years passed. Their bodies wasted away, while minds stayed trapped. A few satellites triggered worse things. They made tiny bubbles where physics broke. Matter decayed into nothing in fast, violent bursts. Whole armadas folded inward and vanished. No screams reached outside because sound could not escape. The Kyrax tried to fight the invisible enemy. They fired wild shots at empty space. They sent suicide swarms to find the sources, but the satellites stayed hidden and moved when needed. Each activation lasted only minutes. Then the array went dark again until the next strike. Across the front lines, the swarm broke apart. Hives pulled back from conquered worlds. They left behind half-finished nests and empty breeding pools. Surviving queens ordered full retreat to deep rim zones. Their signals carried fear instead of triumph. Coalition forces advanced slowly behind the human strikes. They found battlefields with no bodies, only dust. They found planets cracked open like eggshells. They found silence where noise once ruled. Admirals gathered in secret meetings. One tall Elysian looked at the reports and spoke softly. They were not hiding from us, they were hiding what they are from us. Others nodded in quiet agreement. Humans had watched the coalition lose 300 ships. They had measured the enemy's strength. They had waited until despair grew deep enough. Showed what waited behind their closed borders. No one knew how many black ships existed. No one knew the full size of their arsenal. No one knew what other weapons stayed hidden. Yet one truth stood clear. The Kyrax who had eaten worlds now ran like prey. Humanity did not conquer or claim territory. They did not demand thanks or tribute. They simply removed the threat with cold care. Each phase built on the last. Alpha killed the young. Beta broke the homes. Gamma erased the armies. Together they turned the galactic terror into scattered remnants. Coalition worlds began to breathe again. Refugees returned to empty homes. Repair crews started work on broken stations. Hope returned in small pieces. But every alien who saw the human work felt the same quiet fear. These beings had chosen when to wake. They had chosen how much force to use. and they could choose again. Watched the black ships fade back into shadow. They left no monuments, no messages. Only the memory of dust, where enemies once stood. And in that memory, a new respect grew. Not friendship, not alliance, but something deeper and colder. Awareness of a power that slept until needed. And when it woke, the stars themselves seemed to bow. The war ended faster than anyone thought possible. 4 months after the first black ship appeared, the Kyrak swarm lay in pieces. Hives that once covered dozens of systems now huddled in dark corners of the outer rim. Surviving queens sent surrender signals on every channel. They offered tribute and territory, and even their young as hostages. The messages repeated over and over in broken coalition languages. No answer ever came back. Human ships did not chase the broken enemy into deep space. They stopped striking when the last major hive cluster fell silent. One by one, the black shakes vanished from sensors. They slipped away as quietly as they had arrived. No victory parades crossed the stars. No flags waved in triumph. The galaxies simply woke up one day to find the terror gone. Coalition worlds began the long work of healing. Refugees returned to homes they thought lost forever. Crews cleared the debris, wreckage from trade lanes. Builders raised new stations where old ones had burned. Children played again under open skies, without fear of green mist. Yet every being who had watched the human campaign carried a new weight inside. They knew something fundamental had changed. The balance of power no longer rested on numbers or alliances or ancient tech. It rested on one species that had chosen to stay apart until the moment felt right. On the rebuilt council station above Harmony Prime, a single human arrived. She came alone in a small shuttle with no escort. No weapons showed on the craft. No honor guard waited at the dock. She stepped onto the platform in a plain gray jumpsuit. Her hair stayed short and practical. Her face held calm lines that spoke of many hard choices. The council chamber filled quickly. Delegates from every surviving race took their seats. They watched her walk to the center. Podium. She stood straight and looked at each face in turn. No one spoke first. Finally, the Elysian High Speaker rose. His voice carried across the silent room. You answered our call when no one else could. We lost much, but we live because of what you did. We offer thanks and friendship and any aid you need. The woman listened without changing expression. When he finished, she spoke in clear, simple words. We answered your call. The debt is paid. Do not call again, unless the stars themselves are burning. Murmurs moved through the chamber. A Gorath admiral leaned forward. Why did you wait so long? Why let 300 of our ships die? Why watch us break before you moved? She met his eyes without anger or pity. Because you needed to understand what losing felt like. Now you know what winning costs, when the people who pay the price are the ones who invented mutually assured destruction. Attrition. Warfare scorched earth, and the long peace that followed. Her words hung in the air like cold metal. No one interrupted. She continued. We stayed apart because we learned early that power shared too soon invites endless war. We built in silence because noise draws challengers. We measured you all for decades. We saw your strengths and your blindness. When the swarm came, we waited to see if you could stand alone. You could not. So we stood instead. But we do not join your council. We do not share our tools. We do not ask for your gratitude. We ask only one thing. Remember what you saw. Remember what sleepers can become when they wake. She turned to leave. A core delegate with trembling voice called out, Will you ever come again? She paused at the door. If something threatens every world, including ours, we will return. Until then, live well and learn. The shuttle left the station without fanfare. It jumped away and left no trace. Delegates sat in stunned quiet for a long time. Some felt relief. Some felt shame. All felt small. In the months that followed, humans returned to their quiet ways. Earth's shipyards went back to building freighters and science vessels. Factories made tools for farms and homes. Scouts patrolled only the Sol system borders. No new black ships appeared on galactic maps. The Silentium array satellites went dormant once more. They drifted like forgotten stones until needed again. Coalition records added a new section called the Human Intervention. Scholars studied it with care. They wrote about the entropy weapons and kinetic lances and reality distortions. They tried to guess how many ships waited in hidden yards. They failed to find answers. But every student learned one clear lesson. Humanity did not need. The galaxy had needed them. And in that need, the truth showed itself. Apex predators do not roar to prove their place. They wait in silence. They watch with cold eyes. They act only when balance breaks. And when they act, the hunt ends swiftly. Years passed. New generations rose among the stars. They heard the old stories of the swarm and the black ships. Some called them legends. Others called them warnings. Children asked why the humans stayed apart. Elders answered with soft voices. Because they can. Because they remember what happens when trust breaks. Because the galaxy is safer when they choose to sleep. And so the stars turned in their slow dance. Trade flowed again. Worlds rebuilt. Life continued. But in quiet moments, when ships passed empty sectors, pilots glanced at shadows. They remembered the shapes that drank light. They remembered dust. Where armies once flew, they remembered one woman who spoke without pride or threat. And in that memory, they found both comfort and caution. The galaxy had gained no new ally. It had gained an understanding. A sleeping force waited beyond the rim. It asked for nothing. It demanded nothing. Yet it stood ready. And should the day come when darkness rose again, that force would wake without hesitation, without mercy, without regret. The stars knew this now, and they shined a little brighter for it.